Hey guys, tonight we wake up somewhere cold, damp, and not entirely friendly to the modern spine. Your eyes blink open against the faint gray light of an unfamiliar dawn. It's chilly, and you feel it in your joints immediately. You're lying on a sagging mattress stuffed with straw and goat hair. The air smells of mildew and smoke, and the room is barely large enough to stretch your arms. The walls are made of coarse stone with flecks of lime plaster clinging here and there. Above you, the wooden beams creak with the sound of footsteps from the room above, thin and warped by time, likely to collapse if someone sneezes too hard. The apartment block is known as an insula, one of the many haphazardly built housing towers in the poorer districts of ancient Rome. You probably won't survive this. Still, here you are. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're listening from somewhere far or near, post your city and the local time. I love seeing how we drift off together across the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your tunic itches. You slept in it. Everyone does. It's a single piece of wool fabric, unlined rough against your skin. There are no undergarments, no socks. You slip your feet into your worn sandals. If you're lucky, they still have their thongs intact. Most mornings, people check for rats before standing. You don't see one, but the corner's been chewed through. You open the wooden shutter. There's no glass. A breeze creeps in, cool and sour. You hear clanging metal on metal, someone pounding something in a forge 2 streets away. Voices rise from the alleys, shouting, bartering, a distant baby crying. The sun is barely up and the city is already alive. Your building sways slightly when someone on the 3rd floor slams a door. Historians still argue whether these wooden superstructures reached 7 or 8 stories, but no one doubts they collapsed often. Fires rot bad design. You live on the 4th floor, which is considered safe. The rent is cheaper if you're higher up. But when the bucket line can't reach you in time, it won't matter. There's no private kitchen, no plumbing. You share a stairwell with 20 other tenants. The corridor smells like boiled onions and stale fish. You pass neighbors with hollow eyes and missing teeth. One lady carries a chamber pot. She nods at you but says nothing. Everyone minds their own business. Survival takes up all the social bandwidth. You descend the stairs slowly. They creak. They're slick with something unidentifiable. A boy ahead of you slips and catches himself on the railing. His basket of turnips tumbles down. He doesn't speak, just sighs, gathers them again one by one. At street level, the doorway opens directly onto a narrow alley called a vicus. You step into it. The sunlight bounces off whitewashed walls too bright for your eyes. The cobbles are uneven. Water runs in rivulets, some of it rain, most of it sewage. You avoid the puddles as best you can. A dog sniffs a dead pigeon at the corner. It snarls when you pass. There's no trash service. Refuse is dumped outside after dark. That pile of cabbage stems and fish bones next to your doorway, from someone upstairs. A slave girl pours a bucket of dishwater into the street from a 2nd-story window. It splashes near your feet. You don't flinch. It happens hourly. You make your way toward the public latrine. It's shared by the block. You pass a vendor selling chickpeas roasted on a brazier. Another peddles stale flatbread out of a wicker basket. You hear a flute somewhere shaky, off-key, persistent. The latrine is an open bench made of marble, with holes spaced at intervals. Beneath it, a flowing channel of water carries away waste, at least when the aqueduct is working. There's no privacy, no partitions, just strangers shifting uncomfortably, making eye contact only when absolutely necessary. You hesitate, then sit. The stone is cold. There's no toilet paper, just a communal sponge on a stick kept in a bucket of vinegar water. You wonder about the last person who used it. You wonder about the person after you. A man next to you is humming. Another is adjusting his tunic to avoid splashing. A child is crying outside. You finish quickly and rise. You dip your hands in the vinegar bucket and dry them on your tunic. There's no soap, no towel. You move on. A cart rumbles past, pulled by a weary mule with a stitched leather muzzle. The driver shouts at passers-by, trying to clear the path. His cart is filled with amphorae-large clay jars sealed with pitch. Some contain oil, some wine, some fermented fish sauce. They all smell similar. A woman leads 2 children past you. Their feet are bare. Their tunics are patched in too many places to count. She clutches a clay tablet, likely a list or a record of debts. She turns down an alley and vanishes. You walk a little farther and come to a public fountain. The water trickles from a lion-shaped spout. It's your only clean source of water. You fill a small cup and sip. The water tastes slightly metallic, but it's cool. You pour some on your face. A man behind you clears his throat impatiently. You move on. A cat scurries across the road chasing something. A beggar rattles a wooden bowl. You toss him a small coin and as the cheapest denomination. He doesn't thank you. His eyes are glazed over. He might not see you at all. You pause and glance back at your apartment block. The wooden balconies lean like exhausted arms. Laundry flaps in the breeze, tunics, cloaks, bed linens washed in river water and dried in city soot. A woman beats a rug with a stick. Dust clouds drift into the street. You look up. A gull wheels overhead, shrieking. The sky is pale blue, streaked with faint trails of cooking smoke. Rome stretches in every direction, stone, clay, and noise. It's the largest city on earth, and it doesn't care whether you make it through the day. You step away from the fountain and rejoin the flow of early risers, threading through the narrow alleys. The city never fully sleeps, but mornings in Rome carry a distinct rhythm, slower than the midday crush, but urgent in their own way. The air is still heavy with the lingering damp of night, and every surface seems to sweat stone-cold dew. You walk past a baker's doorway where heat leaks out into the street. The smell of rising bread gives a rare moment of comfort until it's quickly overpowered by the nearby tanner's shop. You pass the bathhouse but keep going. That comes later. First, there's business to attend to of a very human sort. The public toilet lies just beyond a row of stalls selling garlic, chickpeas, olives, and animal organs displayed on wet planks. It's not a place of privacy. The Roman communal latrine is nothing if not practical. Stone benches with keyhole-shaped cutouts sit evenly spaced in a long row with no dividers, no barriers. Beneath the holes runs a small stream of aqueduct-fed water to wash away the waste, assuming it's flowing today. You watch a man test it by dropping in a small pebble. It moves slowly, barely. Still, it's better than nothing. You pick a spot and lower yourself. The marble is cold again. The chill shoots up your spine. Across from you, a child dangles his legs nervously. Next to you, a soldier eats a boiled egg seemingly unbothered. No one talks much here, but eyes still drift. It's a place of business, but also a space to catch rumors and complaints. You catch fragments of conversation about missing grain shipments, a fight near the docks, someone slipping on the steps of the Temple of Saturn. When you're done, you reach for the only available hygiene tool, the tersorium, a sea sponge attached to a stick shared by everyone. It sits in a bucket of sour-smelling vinegar water. You use it quickly and return it, trying not to imagine how many hands and surfaces it's touched today. Outside, a line has already formed. The city has over 1 million residents, and sanitation is a shared struggle. As you walk away, someone hurries past you holding their tunic awkwardly bunched. Their eyes are wide with urgency. You don't stop to ask. Further down the street, you find a food stall. The vendor is already shouting prices. On the counter, there's a spread of morning fare, barley porridge in terracotta bowls, small loaves of day-old bread, dried dates, and hard cheese. You pay with a worn bronze coin and receive a chunk of cold bread wrapped in fig leaf, a small lump of olive paste, and a spoonful of garum fermented fish sauce on a scrap of flatbread. You chew slowly. The bread is rough and hard, the crust sharp. The olive paste is bitter gritty with ground pits. But the fish sauce, that's the punch. Sharp, salty, and aggressively pungent. It fills your nose before it hits your tongue. Romans love it. You don't have a choice. You sit on the edge of a dry fountain to eat. A pigeon lands nearby, tilts its head at your bread, then hops closer. You toss it a crumb. It snatches it up and flies off. A group of schoolboys passes arguing in Latin about Virgil's verses. One shoves another. The smallest boy clutches a wax tablet close to his chest, eyes darting. Above you, a man leans out of a window and dumps a small bucket of gray water into the street. It splashes against the opposite wall and pools at your feet. You step back just in time. Nobody apologizes in Rome. Nobody expects one either. With the worst of your hunger dulled, you make your way toward the Forum. The route takes you past open storefronts where metal workers already hammer away at tools' hinges and iron nails. The clanging rings in your ears, a constant rhythm that's both grounding and exhausting. The air grows thicker with soot and charcoal dust. You pass a doorway where a woman squats beside a wooden crate full of onions, garlic bulbs, and fennel roots. She eyes you, then looks away. Everyone seems to be in motion, everyone with a task except you. As you cross into a wider street, the smell of urine becomes overpowering. You wrinkle your nose. A nearby Follonica Roman laundry shop uses human urine to clean tunics and dye cloth. It's collected in large clay jars stationed on street corners where people relieve themselves directly into the pot. Later, slaves carry it in, mix it with water, and stomp dirty linens underfoot in open vats. The ammonia strips the grime and sometimes the color too. Fresh linens smell sharp like vinegar and rot. You hurry past. At another stall, a barber works on a man's beard with a thin blade and shaky hands. There's no soap, just water and oil. Behind him, another customer waits to have his eyebrows singed with a smoldering reed. You watch as the barber pats the man's cheeks with a cloth, then gestures for payment. A coin clinks into a wooden bowl. On the next block, a cosmetics vendor applies thick white makeup to a wealthy woman's face. The cream contains lead. Everyone knows this, and no one stops using it. Her cheeks are already cracking. She adds a dusting of powdered beetle shells to her lips and steps aside. You hear someone gag behind you. Further down, you pass a perfumery, its tiny door open to let the scent waft out. Myrrh, cardamom, and cinnamon oils try to mask the stench of the alley, but only partially succeed. A boy inside grinds herbs in a bowl, wiping his nose with his sleeve. It's not even noon. You pause at a small shrine beside the road. Inside the recess is a clay statue of a household god worn smooth by centuries of soot and touch. Someone has left a bit of honey cake. You drop a crumb of your bread and move on. Superstition carries weight here, even for the skeptical. A man stumbles past his tunic misbuttoned. His face is slack, his breath thick with cheap wine. He shouts at no one in particular. Two girls giggle from behind a doorway. The day warms slowly. The sun rises above the rooftops, casting shadows that move along with the chatter. You feel sweat gathering beneath your tunic. There is no deodorant. People bathe often, but only if they can afford the fee or sneak in early. As you return toward the fountain, someone calls out prices for vinegar wine. Another offers sliced onions with pickled turnips. The sounds of the street blur into a constant murmur, broken only by the clop of hooves or a vendor's shout. And still in the distance, the clang of metal echoes faintly, like a bell that never stops ringing. The morning grows heavier with heat, and the dust of the city begins to rise, kicked up by sandals, hooves, and cartwheels. Your stomach is still unsettled from the olive paste and garum, but hunger returns quicker in Rome. Meals are simple, usually cold, and often repetitive. The Romans, even the rich ones, eat to fill the belly, not to excite the palate. You turn onto a side street lined with popinae, small street food shops with marble counters open to the road. Inside, a man ladles broth into clay bowls. In another, salted pork hangs from a beam, flies buzzing lazily over the meat. You spot trays of pickled cabbage, chickpeas, boiled eggs, and olives blackened by age. Bread is everywhere, round loaves with hard crusts that crack when pressed. There are no napkins, no cutlery. You eat with your fingers or you don't eat. You choose a stall and hand over a coin. The woman behind the counter grunts, then reaches for a tray. She offers a rough square of barley bread, a wedge of sheep's cheese, and a few spoonfuls of stewed lentils in a small wooden bowl. No plate. You find a space on a stone ledge and settle in. You bite into the bread. It crumbles dry and coarse. There's a faint taste of grit, maybe from the quern stones used to grind the flour, maybe just from city air. The cheese is sharp, a little sour. The lentils are warm thin, with small carrot slices floating in the broth. It's enough. You watch the street as you eat. A courier dashes past with a wax tablet tucked under one arm. He weaves between baskets and bodies. A girl with a wooden bucket trips, spilling water across the stones. Her mother scolds her sharply, then grabs her wrist and pulls her away. A vendor nearby shouts about peppercorns from India. He holds a pouch of the precious spice high in the air. A man in a dark cloak steps forward and inspects it. They haggle in quick, clipped tones. Finally, the seller nods. The buyer pays, takes his prize, and disappears into the crowd. Romans love foreign food. Their recipes borrow from Greeks, Egyptians, Syrians, and Persians. But not everyone gets to enjoy the variety. For most meals rotate between bread beans, cheese, wine, and the ever-present fish sauce. Fresh fruit is a luxury. Meat is rare. A whole roast boar, only seen during feast days or funerals. You finish your lentils and return the bowl. The woman nods without looking at you. Her hands are already assembling the next meal. Her son sweeps the floor with a short straw broom, barely making a dent in the dust. A man next to you spits out a date pit and wipes his mouth with his tunic. He turns and mutters something about the price of grain. You nod without responding. Everyone has opinions about grain. The state controls most of it. The Anona, a government distribution system, feeds hundreds of thousands through monthly rations. If you're a citizen and registered, you can queue for your share. If not, you buy from the market and hope the ships came in on time. Historians still argue whether the grain dole kept Rome stable or simply masked deeper problems. Either way, when the supply is late, people go hungry. You make your way back toward the market area past a row of tables stacked with earthenware bowls, carved bone combs, and cheap tin jewelry. A potter kneels behind his cart, reshaping a cracked amphora with deft hands. The air smells of clay dust and warm oil. You stop to inspect a cluster of figs. They're shriveled and dark but sweet. You buy 3 for a copper coin. The seller slips them into a bit of linen. You bite into one. It sticks to your teeth, gritty with ash from the air. Nearby, a man sells wine cut with water. It's cloudy and slightly sour, stored in a goatskin sack that leaks at the seams. You pass. Further down the road, you come upon a stall roasting chickpeas in a clay pan over hot coals. The vendor stirs them constantly with a flat stick, keeping them from burning. He lets you try one. It's hot, salty, and dry. You buy a small handful and pocket them. A dog slinks by ribs visible beneath matted fur. It sniffs at the gutter, then trots off. A boy chases it with a stick but gives up quickly. The midday sun burns higher. You wipe sweat from your brow. The market buzz grows louder. More people arrive, merchants from the port housewives with baskets, slaves sent to gather goods. Everyone pushes forward, trading coins and curses with equal ease. You watch a pair of men argue over the weight of a sack of flour. One calls for a magistrate. The other gestures wildly, insisting the scales are fair. A crowd gathers. You move on before it turns into something worse. You stop at a spice vendor. He has trays of dried herbs, mint, dill, coriander, rue. A tiny dish of saffron threads sits on a velvet cloth. You stare at the golden slivers more expensive than silver. The vendor notices your interest and offers a smile, but you walk away. Your last stop is a stand selling preserved fish wrapped in fig leaves. The smell is sharp metallic. You ask for one and receive a small salty mackerel coated in honey and vinegar. It's cold, it's chewy. You eat it anyway. Food in Rome isn't about comfort. It's about survival. As you head back toward the Forum, your stomach turns slightly. It's probably the fish, or the wine from earlier, or the water. You feel it twist, then settle. There's no medicine at hand. If it gets worse, you'll visit an herbalist. If not, you'll endure. The city narrows again as you turn toward your next destination. You pass a wall scribbled with graffiti, political slogans, dirty poems, and one crude drawing of a gladiator. A woman nearby sells herbs from a shallow tray, bay, leaves, dried nettles, bits of garlic bulb. You buy a few sprigs and tuck them into your pouch. They might come in handy. You duck beneath a low archway and emerge into another alley, one you don't recognize. You pause. A man leans against a wall nearby, whittling a stick. He glances up, then down. You nod and keep moving. Wrong turns are easy in this city. Maps don't help. You learn by getting lost. Finally, you spot a familiar fountain. You're close to the forum now. The clamor of the crowd rises again. The smell of hot bread body odor and burning oil thickens. You sigh and press forward. The day is only half over. You feel it already behind your eyes, in your knees, in the slow ache growing in your lower back. The Roman Empire doesn't make space for rest, not unless you earn it or steal it. You push through the narrow street and emerge into a widening expanse of stone, dust, and noise. The Forum Romanum, Rome's political, commercial, and religious heart, stretches before you. It isn't glamorous. Not yet. You see chipped columns, leaning porticos, and half-finished statues beside scaffolds that creak in the breeze. Still, everything here matters. This is where decisions happen. Rumors take root, and appearances are more important than truth. You're not alone. A crowd buzzes along the Via Sacra, the sacred way, which cuts through the center. Men in togas stride purposefully, their hems clean despite the grime. Slaves follow behind with wax tablets and scrolls. Vendors shout the day's rates for wheat wine and olive oil. A boy tries to sell you a tiny carved Mercury figurine. You wave him off. Stone temples rise on either side, massive, cold, commanding. The temple of Saturn looms with chipped steps and soot-darkened columns. Its treasury once held Rome's wealth, but now it mostly holds debt. You overhear two older men debating tax receipts and nodding toward the basilica ahead. To your left, a group gathers around the rostra, the speaker's platform. A man in a faded toga yells about land redistribution, waving his arms at the crowd. Some nod, others jeer. His voice cracks, but he keeps going. Behind him, a statue of Julius Caesar stands in quiet defiance. Pigeons sit on its shoulders. You pass a row of benches shaded by a wooden awning. A trio of retired legionaries plays dice, the clack of ivory cubes sharp and quick. One laughs, pockets his winnings, and offers a chunk of bread to a dog under the table. The dog takes it gently and vanishes. You turn toward the basilica. Julia, one of the large halls used for legal proceedings and civic business. Inside, marble floors gleam in patches worn smooth by sandals and time. Court is in session. A defendant pleads his case about stolen grain. His accuser points repeatedly at a torn contract. The magistrate listens, yawns, and sips watered wine. Justice here isn't blind, it's bored. You keep walking. A line forms outside the tabularium, Rome's archive. Men with scrolls and wax tablets wait under the sun, shifting their weight and muttering. One drops his stylus. Another sneezes violently, scattering ash from his hair. There's a low hum near the temple of Castor and Pollux. Two men argue in Greek. One wears a bright cloak, the other carries a box of scrolls. Philosophers probably, or teachers, or frauds. It's hard to tell in Rome. A woman in a yellow palla skirts past them, her sandals kicking up tiny clouds of dust. Her slave follows close behind, struggling with a wicker basket filled with lemons and linen. She pauses to adjust her veil. You catch a glimpse of coal lining her eyes, smudged from heat. Above you, scaffolding surrounds a partially restored arch. Workers haul stone using pulleys and ropes. One curses as a block slips. You instinctively move away. The last collapse killed two passers-by. No one sued. Historians still argue whether the Forum was ever truly peaceful. Some say it was a space for civil engagement. Others describe it as a theater of chaos, business, politics, and crime wrapped in stone. Either way, it thrums with energy. You pass a scribe copying legal text onto a wax tablet. His stylus moves slowly, lips twitching as he whispers the words. His eyes are bloodshot. Nearby, a man with a crooked back offers legal advice for a price. You don't stop. You pause near a pillar. A painted notice clings to the stone, a lost dog, black and thin, last seen near the Janiculum Hill. Promised reward, half a loaf of bread, and a kiss from Fortuna. Likely a joke, but in Rome, hope is always up for trade. A small crowd circles a man juggling 3 clay cups. Under one, he hides a pebble. He shuffles them quickly. Someone guesses wrong. Another tries. Also wrong. You watch for a moment, then walk on. Sleight of hand is older than empires. Your stomach grumbles again. The market noise grows louder. You turn into the Macellum, the main food market of the city. Covered stalls offer everything from eel to dormice. Yes, dormice, fat-skinned, seasoned with honey and poppy seeds. You gag slightly and move to the bread section. Their loaves stamped with the baker's seal sit in orderly piles. Some are round, with 8 scored sections. Others are flat and blackened. A woman inspects one and sniffs. She nods, pays, and wraps it in cloth. You step past a fishmonger's table. A stingray lies half-sliced on a board. Gills pulse slowly. An eel twitches in a basin. A slave scoops it up and tosses it into a basket. It slaps against the wicker, then goes still. You walk on. A butcher sings to himself as he saws through a lamb shank. Flies cling to his tunic. His knife squeals against the bone. Blood drips to the floor and pools near your sandal. You back away. He grins without looking up. Out in the open again, the sun beats hard against the marble. You squint. Across the Forum, a priest walks in solemn procession, swinging a censer. Smoke trails behind him, sweet and thick. A boy scatters flower petals ahead of his steps. The smell chases away the fish for a moment. You circle back past the arch of Septimius Severus. Children play in its shadow, chasing each other with sticks and laughter. A guard watches them from a shaded alcove, sipping something from a clay cup. He doesn't move. Nearby, a man tries to sell charms, carved from bone protection against curses, he claims. You examine one shaped like a fist. He swears it guards against the evil eye. You nod, but keep your coins. The shadows grow longer. You find a shaded bench and sit. Around you, the Forum breathes deep and constant. There's no silence here, only layers of noise. Somewhere a cart creaks. A hammer clangs. A bird cries overhead. You pull a piece of bread from your pouch. It's already dry. You chew anyway. A beetle crawls across the stone beside your foot. You flick it away. Even without war, Rome is exhausting. This is the daily grind. Stone and sweat, words and dust. One moment to the next, all you can do is keep moving. You shift on the stone bench, knees, stiff back sore. The crowd in the Forum has thinned just slightly, but the noise never stops. Somewhere behind you, a crier reads a new edict in a voice already hoarse from repetition. The decree has to do with water rationing for the Trans-Tiberum district. No one listens. The words vanish into the air like breath on cold marble. You rise, brushing crumbs from your tunic, and begin to walk again this time, heading east toward a quieter part of the city. The alleys turn narrow again. The buildings closer together, their walls pockmarked and soot-streaked. Clotheslines stretch overhead, hung with tunics. Towels, the occasional underwrap. You pass under an archway into a courtyard. Inside, a group of boys plays at mock gladiators' wooden swords clashing against shields made of wicker basket lids. One falls and pretends to die dramatically clutching his chest. The others cheer, then switch roles. None of them are older than 10. One day a few might be real gladiators. More likely, most will never leave the alley. At the far end of the courtyard, you see a woman sweep stone steps with a stiff, bristled broom. Her head is lowered. She's barefoot. You watch her pause and glance up, eyes wary. You nod. She does not return it. Someone grabs your arm. It happens fast. A young man with calloused hands and a tunic that smells of tallow shoves you forward. "In here," he says. Another man appears behind you. You don't resist. Not because you're afraid, though you are, but because it's easier to move than to ask questions. They lead you into a doorway, through a short passage, and into a shaded atrium. The light dims. Your eyes adjust. You realize where you are. A domus. A Roman townhouse. But not as a guest. As a slave. You glance around. The walls are painted in reds and ochres scenes of gods and dancing nymphs. A small fountain gurgles in the center of the room. Marble busts line one alcove. Everything is too clean, too quiet. A woman appears from a side door. She wears a white stola and gold-threaded sandals. Her hair is wound tightly in a complex knot. She points at you. "The new one?" she asks. The two men nod. She turns to you, eyes sharp. "You know how to cook." You don't answer. She doesn't wait. "We'll see." She disappears again. The men lead you down a hall lined with storage jars. You pass a kitchen where smoke curls upward from a blackened hearth. You hear chopping. Smell vinegar and garlic. Someone stirs a pot. A girl hums quietly. She doesn't look up. You're shown to a small room. It's not much larger than a closet. A straw mat lies on the floor. No blanket. A wooden peg on the wall holds a single spare tunic. You sit. One of the men closes the door. It doesn't lock. It doesn't have to. This is the life of a Roman slave. Historians still argue whether urban slavery was more bearable than agricultural slavery. In the fields you worked till you collapsed. In the city you worked until you vanished. Your labor was invisible but constant. Your rest depended on the whim of a master or the indifference of a mistress. Hours pass. You're summoned to the kitchen. There you peel onions, then garlic, then mash chickpeas in a mortar, then strip herbs. Your fingers sting from the vinegar. The cook says nothing to you, only gestures. Dinner is being prepared for the dominus, the master of the house, and a visiting senator. The menu includes dormice stuffed with nuts and dipped in honey-boiled octopus legs, in vinegar, and sow's udder with dill. There's also baked apples with pine nuts, a dish of parsnips fried in fish sauce, and a stew that smells faintly of old wine. You help arrange platters. The table in the dining room has been set low couches placed in a crescent with ivory-legged stools nearby, silver plates, glass bowls, clay cups filled with watered Falernian wine. Oil lamps glow in wall niches. The air smells of myrrh. You do not eat. The slaves eat later once the guests are gone, and only if there are leftovers. You are not invited. You don't speak unless asked. You don't sit unless ordered. One of the footboys drops a bowl of lentils. It shatters. Everyone freezes. The cook raises his hand. The boy flinches. But the cook lowers it and mutters instead, "Clean it." The boy does. Later, when the guests leave, you sweep. You wipe spilled wine from the floor with a rough cloth. You carry out empty plates and uneaten olives. You wash each dish in cold water. There is no soap, only ash and sand. You sleep in the storeroom that night beside a sack of onions and a crate of dried figs. You listen to the faint drip of water from the roof channel. You hear mice. You hear snoring from the next room. You don't sleep much. This is how many live. Urban slaves in Rome are scribes, tutors, cooks, porters, and assistants. Some are educated. Some barely speak Latin. Some can earn their freedom after years of service. Others die without a name. The next morning, you are allowed to leave. No explanation, no farewell. A different slave walks you to the door. You step out back into the city blinking at the light. You were only there a day, maybe less. But you feel something has changed. You walk slower now. Watch the street with new eyes. You see slaves carrying buckets, sweeping thresholds, holding parasols above their owners' heads. Their faces show nothing, but you know what's beneath. Rome runs on labor, most of it unpaid. And whether you're citizen or servant, you're never far from the next demand. You walk in silence, the sun now higher, its light unforgiving on the pale stone streets. There is no shade in this part of the city. The buildings rise narrow and close, but their shadows fall thin and sharp. You pass a man scrubbing clay pots with sand. The grit rasps loudly. A woman hauls a jug of water balanced on her shoulder. She stumbles slightly. No one helps her. You don't either. The street turns wider. Ahead, smoke curls lazily from a rectangular building, one of the Fulonicae. Roman laundries. You already know the smell. It hits you long before you arrive, urine ash vinegar and wet wool. The fullers are at work. Inside workers, slaves mostly tread fabric underfoot in large vats filled with water and human urine. The ammonia helps break down grease and stains. They stomp in rhythm, arms out for balance, eyes squinted against the splashing. The smell clings to the stone walls and settles in the folds of their tunics. You watch one man lift a dripping tunic and slap it against a post to remove excess water. Another pulls linen from a wooden press and lays it out to dry in the sun. Outside, folded laundry sits in piles stiff and faintly yellowed. The final rinse has already been done, sometimes with perfumed water if the client can afford it. Most can't. One fuller sits under an awning scrubbing a wine stain with chalk and oil. His hands are red from vinegar. You stand at the edge, not going in. There's no need. But the stench lingers in your nostrils long after you move on. A few blocks over, the crowd thickens again. People jostle each other outside a barber shop. The owner, a tall man with a single gold ring, is working quickly shaving one customer while his assistant oils another's scalp. A third man has his armpits singed with a lit reed. He winces but doesn't flinch. Grooming in Rome isn't gentle, it's a performance. You step past and into a cosmetics stall. Shelves hold tiny clay pots of white lead paste, coal powder, crushed minerals, and pig fat mixed with herbs. A wealthy matron reclines on a stool while a servant dabs her cheeks with the white paste. Her face is already coated pale, smooth, and ghost-like. Red ochre tints her lips. Her brows are plucked thin. Her fingernails painted with saffron. She doesn't blink when you pass. Her eyes are glassy. She hasn't smiled once. The beauty standards here are brutal. Pale skin, dark eyes, rouged cheeks, no body hair. Achieved by any means harmless or otherwise. The lead makeup causes sores, sometimes illness. The perfumes are often rancid. One popular eyeliner contains soot and antimony. Another uses powdered beetles. You remember the smell from the laundry now layered with rose oil and burned resin. Further along, you come to a bathhouse. The baths are part of Rome's pulse, open to all citizens for a small fee, or sometimes free, depending on who's paying that week. Senators might bathe here, so might butchers. Status dissolves in steam. You pay a coin and enter. First comes the apoditerium, the changing room. You find an empty niche in the stone wall and place your tunic there. A slave watches your belongings. Theft is common. You keep a small coin in your palm, just in case. You walk into the tepidarium, a warm room. Your skin adjusts slowly. The heat isn't overwhelming yet. The air is damp. Mosaics on the wall show dolphins, tridents, and sea creatures dancing in faded tile. Other bathers sit on stone benches, rubbing oil into their arms and legs. You do the same. Olive oil, sometimes mixed with herbs, acts as both cleanser and moisturizer. You step into the caldarium, the hot room. The steam hits you like a wall. You pause, then push forward. The heat seeps into your bones. Water drips from the ceiling. A large bronze cauldron bubbles in the corner, heated from below by the hypocaust, an underfloor furnace system that pushes hot air through the walls and floors. You sit on a bench, sweat pooling at your neck. Someone next to you grunts, then pours a ladle of water onto the floor. Steam billows. A slave moves through the room, scraping bathers with a strigil, a curved metal blade used to remove oil and dirt. You raise your arm. He nods and begins. The motion is rough but efficient. Strigil, wipe, repeat. Historians still argue whether this truly cleans the body or simply redistributes grime. Either way, it's the Roman way. You move to the frigidarium, the cold room. You brace yourself and step into the plunge pool. The shock steals your breath. You stay only moments, then climb out. Skin-prickled lungs tight. You return to the changing room and redress. Your skin smells of oil and smoke. You feel lighter, cleaner, but not rested. Outside, the street is just as noisy. The bathhouse fades behind you, its steam drifting toward the rooftops. You pass a stall selling loaves of bread still warm from the communal oven. You consider buying one, then remember the coin spent at the bath. You move on. A man passes you wearing thick perfume. It clings to him like a second tunic. Myrrh, cinnamon, and musk. The combination is dizzying. You step aside to breathe. You spot a group of women gathered near a water fountain talking in hushed tones. Their eyes shift. One of them points to her cheek and mimics a slap. The others gasp. The conversation ends abruptly when a man walks by. They fall silent. As you turn another corner, you see a crowd forming around a young man on a wooden platform. He's singing a ballad of some kind. A small crowd listens, tossing him bits of bread, a fig, a coin. His voice rises, echoing off the stones. You pause to listen. The melody is slow, repetitive, sleepy. You feel your knees soften. But the moment passes. You keep walking. Ahead, a vendor offers boiled cabbage and onions for a few coins. You stop. The bowl is steaming. The smell is heavy, familiar, dull. You eat slowly, standing watching the street as night begins to hint at the edges of the sky. Rome is winding toward evening. The city doesn't sleep yet, but the rhythm changes. Light softens. Sounds deepen. Shadows lengthen. And you're still on your feet, wondering what tomorrow might look like and how many more buckets of vinegar ash or fish sauce it will bring. You finish the last spoonful of cabbage and hand the bowl back. The vendor doesn't look up. He's already refilling another for the man behind you. Your feet are sore. Dust clings to your ankles, the skin above your sandals rubbed raw. But there's no point sitting. Not yet. The crowd shifts. Someone brushes past your shoulder. You hear a burst of shouting louder than before coming from the direction of the Aventine. People begin walking faster. Not running. Not yet. You follow the flow not because you know where it's going, but because movement in Rome usually means something's happening, and something happening means you might want to see it or avoid it. The crowd thickens as you approach a large stone structure surrounded by columns. You know the shape. Everyone does. The amphitheater. This one isn't the Colosseum. That's farther off, used for the grandest shows. This is a smaller arena, local, but still brutal, still well attended. The crowd here is hungry not for food, but for blood, spectacle, humiliation. The kind of hunger that grows in public places when people stop noticing how tired they are. You squeeze through an entrance past a sweating guard who barely glances up. Inside, the air changes, more closed in, heavier. The stone beneath your sandals is warm. Voices echo. 1,000 of them or more. They bounce off stone and flesh. There's a vibration beneath your feet. You find a space along the upper tier. No seat, just standing room. Below, in the center of the sand-covered arena, a group of men prepares something. You see wooden props, a canvas awning half unfurled, a few animals in cages, restless pacing. It isn't a gladiator day. This is a different kind of entertainment. You watch as a man in a purple-trimmed toga rises from his seat and signals with a long, thin rod. The crowd quiets. A second later, a gate opens and a small chariot rolls out, pulled by goats. A child dressed as Bacchus stands atop it, arms raised, holding a cup. The crowd erupts in laughter. It's theater, parody, pageantry, a dramatized battle between mock gods. Men in masks dance across the arena floor, hurling javelins made of wood, pretending to fall, pretending to die. Every gesture is exaggerated, every cry too loud. You don't laugh, but others do. One woman near you cackles so hard she drops a handful of dried fruit. A moment later, the mood shifts. The props are removed. Another gate opens. This time a real animal emerges. A leopard, lean and agitated, flanked by two handlers with iron-tipped poles. The crowd stirs. One of the dancers reappears, this time holding a dull blade. He makes a great show of trembling. The handlers back away. The leopard sniffs the sand. The dancer lunges. The leopard retreats. The crowd cheers. Then the animal darts forward. The dancer stumbles. The blade drops. The handlers rush in. For a moment, everything blurs. Then it's over. No blood. Not this time. But close. Historians still argue whether Roman crowds preferred comedy or cruelty. Some claim the games were distractions, panem et circenses bred in circuses. Others believe they were rituals of dominance reenacted daily. Either way, everyone watched. Everyone came back. You wipe sweat from your brow. The heat inside the amphitheater has grown. The awning only covers part of the upper tier. Beneath it, senators sit with perfumed kerchiefs held to their faces. Slaves fan them with stiff reeds. A few children doze in their mothers' laps. A man behind you offers figs from a linen pouch. You shake your head. He shrugs and eats one. His teeth are black. The next act begins. A blindfolded man stands in the center of the arena, arms bound. Another man circles him, holding a whip. A narrator announces something about justice. You don't catch the words. The lash cracks once, then again. The bound man falls. The narrator shouts the names of two emperors. The crowd claps. There is no message, just motion, just noise. You leave. Outside, the light has changed. The sun hangs low, casting long shadows across the forum's edge. You walk slowly. The city has quieted just slightly. Voices are lower. Feet drag more. The street is sticky with spilt wine and the peels of pressed fruit. You pass a small shrine, its lamp still burning. A man kneels beside it, whispering into his clasped hands. He wears a cloak but no shoes. You don't stop. At a nearby stall, two children argue over a toy, a carved lion on a string. One pulls the other, "Let's go." The toy falls. They both laugh. Ahead, a group of men sits at a tavern's open window playing dice and slapping the table. One slurs a song. Another leans too far and nearly falls out. You keep walking, past a cart of amphorae, past a woman carrying a basket of spoiled lettuce, past a wall covered in fresh graffiti, one name scratched over another. You pause long enough to read it. Lucius was here. Still is. You turn a corner and hear music pipes and drums slow and arrhythmic. A dancer spins in the center of a ring of torches. Her feet bear her wrists strung with bells. No one speaks. They just watch. You do too. The show ends when the last torch sputters out. You make your way toward the Sabura. The streets here are narrower, the buildings taller, the air thicker. Laundry hangs low, doors stay closed, lamps flicker behind shutters. You pass a butcher closing shop. He drags a sack of bones into a back room. Blood smears the threshold. Flies rise and settle again. A rat darts across the cobblestones. The city feels tired now. Not asleep, never asleep, but stretched thin. You feel it too. Your feet hurt. Your eyes sting. Your stomach rolls softly. The amphitheater was loud, but the city afterward is louder still, in its silence. You pass one more doorway and stop. Inside, a man kneels beside a low table lighting a lamp. He looks up at you, then back down. You walk on. Rome watches everyone and forgets no one. You walk deeper into the Sabura, where Rome's elegance fades and its rawness sharpens. The stones beneath your feet are uneven, slick with grime. The walls rise high on either side, their stucco chipped and blackened from decades of smoke. Here the alleys tighten. The air thickens. Voices lower. This is where most Romans live, not in domus with marble courtyards and statues, but in tall, crumbling insulae built of brick and timber. These buildings lean into each other like tired men at the end of a shift. Every stair creaks. Every floor feels like it might be your last. You turn a corner and enter a narrow lane where laundry hangs so low it brushes your face. You duck under a tunic, nearly stumble over a dog sleeping across the stones. Its ear twitches, but it doesn't wake. Up ahead, a door creaks open. A girl in her teens steps out holding a bundle of cloth in one arm. She notices you, then quickly turns away. Behind her, a baby cries. The sound echoes up the alley, rebounding off window shutters and overhanging balconies. A woman's voice calls out from above something sharp and impatient. The door closes again. You pass a faded red sign painted on the wall. It reads, "Caution, falling masonry." Below it, a pile of broken tiles. No one has cleaned it up. A few doors down, you hear laughter. A group of women sits on stools, snapping green beans into a shared basket. One wears a headscarf. Another chews something slowly. They nod as you walk by, but say nothing. Their arms are scarred with burns from cooking pots. Their eyes don't blink much. You turn again and follow the scent of hot oil and something frying. A small kitchen barely more than a window with a stone slab serves cheap food. Inside, a woman drops thin slices of squash into a pan. They hiss, curl brown. She serves them with vinegar and stale herbs. A customer passes her a chipped coin. She doesn't count it. Behind her, a younger girl prepares a pot of boiled lentils. She moves automatically. You wonder how many meals she makes each day, how many she eats herself. You pause beside a doorway and glance in. The hallway beyond is dark, the air still. A single oil lamp flickers near the stairs. Someone moves above footsteps muffled by worn planks. Then a child appears holding a clay bowl. He's barefoot, tunic, half-tied, hair tangled. He watches you silently, then turns and disappears down the hall. You move on. Ahead, a man sweeps the gutter with a bundle of dried branches. He pushes trash into a pile, then lights it. The flame dances for a moment before dying in a puff of smoke. He doesn't watch it burn. You finally emerge into a slightly wider street. The buildings here are lower, the air looser. You spot a public fountain at the center. A boy fills 2 jugs while his sister balances another on her hip. A woman waits behind them, foot-tapping eyes fixed on the sky. You cross to the other side and approach a portico. A priest stands beneath it, speaking softly to a small gathering. His tunic is white, but the hem is stained with dust. He holds a wooden plaque bearing the names of deities. He lists them slowly, rhythmically. His voice is calm, forgettable. When he finishes, the group disperses. No one speaks. A man approaches the priest and offers a small pouch. The priest nods, slips it into his robe, and blesses the man with 3 fingers. You step back and fade into the edge of the crowd. From there, you watch a procession forming farther up the street. A group of women walks silently in a single file, each carrying a small clay pot. Their heads are covered. Their eyes are fixed forward. At the front, 2 older men walk with staves chanting verses you don't recognize. You follow from a distance. The procession turns into a courtyard near a temple. It's not a grand one, just a modest structure of painted columns and a roof patched with moss. Inside, a simple altar glows with the soft light of oil lamps. The women kneel and place their pots in a row. One begins to sing. The others join her. A low, droning melody. No harmony, just the sound of time moving forward. You stand just outside listening. Behind you, a man clears his throat. He gestures toward the forum. Ceremony's over. They'll serve food soon. You follow. Around the corner, a few large tables have been set. Wooden boards laid atop stone pedestals. Clay cups. Baskets of fruit. Mostly figs, some blackened grapes, a few pomegranates split and browning at the edges. Plates of boiled grain, bowls of mashed lentils, flatbread, cabbage. There's no wine, only water, but it's clean. You take a seat at the end of a bench. A child offers you a cup. You nod. He runs off again. The others sit slowly. No one talks. They eat in quiet breaking bread with fingers sipping between bites. The priest appears again, lifts a hand. To Concordia, he says. They murmur the word Concordia. Peace, agreement. Not victory, not justice, just peace. You eat your grain. It's bland. The cabbage, sour, but warm. For now, it's enough. As the meal ends, people begin to stand. A woman collects the baskets. A man stacks the clay plates. No one leaves quickly. They linger. A few children chase each other between the columns. Their laughter feels louder than the forum's shouting. You rise and step away. At the edge of the courtyard, a young woman stands beside a wall. She holds a baby swaying gently. The child sleeps, one hand clutching her tunic. She hums under her breath something without words. Her eyes are fixed on nothing. You watch for a moment, then turn away. This is the other Rome, the one without statues or parades, the one that doesn't write history, the one that smells of cabbage and wood smoke, where women raise children in rooms with broken windows, where men die of infection, not war, where names fade faster than faces. And yet it goes on, every day, every meal, every song. You walk slowly back toward the center. You pass the same alley, the same butcher, the same graffiti. You see the child again this time, sitting on the steps chewing a crust of bread. He doesn't look up. The sky has darkened now. Lamps are being lit one by one. Small flames in glass bowls. They flicker against stone. They glow in windows. They mark doorways. And you, just one more shadow, walk beneath them. You walk past the flickering lamps, the evening air settling over your skin like damp linen. The sun is gone, leaving only a faint orange smear along the rooftops. As the darkness thickens, the smells of supper cling more sharply to the streets. Smoke, burnt grain, vinegar, and something rotten you can't quite name. You turn down a lane and stop in front of a domus. Light spills from inside golden and steady. You hear laughter. You step closer. Through the open atrium, you see a family reclining on couches. The paterfamilias lounges at the center, a heavy-set man with curled hair and a red bordered tunic. He snaps his fingers and a slave places a bowl in front of him. The table is wide, covered in silver trays and colored dishes. Roasted songbirds. Mushrooms soaked in fish brine. Cold boiled eggs dusted with crushed pepper. Grapes sliced into quarters. Sauces made of mustard and honey. You recognize none of it. Only the bread is familiar, thinner, lighter, brushed with oil. They eat slowly, not for nourishment, but for display. You linger too long. A servant notices and steps outside. He doesn't speak, just stares. You move on. Farther down the alley, you smell a different kind of feast. You round a corner and find the source, a side entrance to the kitchen of another house. Two slaves stand outside, barefoot backs, slick with sweat, cleaning a copper pot over a basin. One scrapes the crusted bottom with a stick. The other stirs ashes into water and pours it across the rim. They work in silence, eyes down. You glance inside. The kitchen is small. A long clay oven lines one wall, flames pulsing within. A spit turns slowly, manned by a boy no older than 10. He turns the handle with one hand and fans the flame with the other. His face is red from the heat. A woman stirs a pot on the stove. You catch the scent, leeks lentils, possibly pork. She lifts the lid, tastes it with her finger, then nods. Another girl kneads dough, pressing it into flat rounds before sliding them into the oven's heat. The floor is covered in straw ash spilled oil. There's no time for conversation, only the rhythm of movement. Chop, stir, taste, bake. Over and over again. The pace is mechanical. So is the exhaustion. You step back as a third slave rushes out with a tray. He almost bumps into you. His eyes flick up down and he's gone. You continue on. Not long after you find another kitchen. This one smaller, hung with smoke. It belongs to a popina, a tavern serving the lower classes. Inside, a man fries sausages in a shallow pan. Oil splatters up his arm. He doesn't flinch. The sausages hiss and curl. He flips them with a metal blade and serves them with lentils and sliced beets. You pay a coin and take a seat at a long stone table. The man sets down a wooden bowl. The sausage is overcooked. The lentils are thin. The beets are soggy. Still you eat. A man beside you slurps his wine and sighs. Too much salt, he mutters to no one. A woman further down hacks into a piece of dry poultry with a broken knife. She doesn't stop to talk. No one does. Behind you, a drunk slurs a story about a senator and a goat. No one laughs. He stops halfway through, forgets the ending, and drinks again. You finish your bowl. It's not filling, but it's warm. You step outside, back into the alley. A small girl crouches beside the door, picking through a pile of vegetable scraps. She finds a carrot end, chews it, and smiles at you. Her teeth are brown. You move on. You pass another butcher's stall. It's closed now, the shutters drawn, but meat still hangs on hooks beneath the awning. Flies buzz lazily. The smell is sweet and sour. You hear a rustle nearby and see a rat climb one of the posts, sniffing. You don't stop it. Further along, you pass a vomitorium. Not what most think. There's no indulgent Roman feasting followed by planned purging. It's simply an exit, a passageway from the amphitheater. But the name sticks in your head. People get it wrong, and Rome doesn't correct them. Still, people do vomit, not by choice. The food here, even the rich kind, spoils fast. Rome lacks refrigeration. Meats are salted fish, our brined fruit is dried. But the heat does its work quickly. In taverns, bad food means upset stomachs. In homes, it means bad smells. In kitchens, it means flies that never leave. One man you pass clutches his belly and groans. Another leans against a wall, breathing through his mouth. A third curses loudly and spits into the gutter. The spit is red. Possibly wine, possibly blood. Historians still argue whether Roman cuisine was truly refined or simply unusual. They ate flamingo-tongue sea urchin and dormice stuffed with pine nuts. But most people never saw such meals. For them, dinner was porridge or boiled cabbage. Anything more was rare. You remember the meal you just ate. It churns slightly. You hope it stays down. You pause near a wall where notices are posted. One advertises a lost mule. Another a reward for the return of a missing brooch. A third lists prices for figs, olives, lentils, and salted mackerel. All crossed out. All rising. Inflation is common. The grain supply shifts. Weather changes. Shipments sink. 1 month you eat barley. The next acorns. No one complains directly. But the silence grows louder. You step into a bakery just as it closes. A boy wipes flour from the counters. The oven glows behind him, the last loaves cooling in baskets. The baker sees you and nods. He wraps a small round loaf in a linen scrap and hands it over. You pay. He says nothing. You step outside. The bread is hot in your hand. You bite into it. The crust cracks. The inside is soft. You chew slowly. It's the best thing you've eaten all day. You walk back toward your insula, carrying the last half of the loaf in a fold of your tunic. The streets are darker now. Lamps flicker above each door. The shadows stretch longer. Voices are fewer. The city shifts again. Night is coming, and food for now is finished. You return to your insula as night begins to settle in for good. The alley that led you out this morning looks different now. It's quieter, but not silent. Fewer people, but more shadows. Doors are closed, shutters fastened. Lamps burn low in small niches carved into the outer walls. You step carefully. The cobblestones are slick with the day's waste glistening in lamplight. As you approach the building, you see someone has left a pile of ash near the entrance, likely emptied from a cooking hearth. Next to it, a broken amphora leans against the wall, its cracked rim catching the light. No one cleans it up. The city's filth stacks quietly, layer by layer. Inside the stairwell is darker than before. The oil lamp at the first landing is nearly out, its flame a weak, fluttering point. You begin to climb. The steps are narrow, worn in the middle. The wood groans beneath your feet. You pause on the second floor. A door opens suddenly, spilling yellow light into the hallway. A man stands there holding a clay cup. He looks at you, then nods once and closes the door. Behind him you heard voices, laughter, and the clatter of a spoon in a bowl. It fades again. By the third floor, the air thickens. It smells of damp linen and boiling beans. A child cries somewhere above. A woman murmurs to quiet them. You step over a wet cloth stretched across the floor to dry. It sticks slightly to your sandal, then comes loose with a soft rip. Your room is on the fourth floor. You reach it with a shallow sigh. The door opens easily. Inside, the air is still. Your straw mattress waits in the corner. The jug of water you left this morning still stands, its mouth covered with a square of cloth tied with twine. You remove it, drink, and replace it. There is no light except what comes through the shutter slats. You open one slightly. The street below is faintly visible, bathed in lamplight, the occasional figure crossing the way in silence. A cat sits on a windowsill across from yours, tail curled, eyes fixed on something unseen. You hear footsteps above. Heavy ones. Followed by a thump. Then nothing. You sit on the edge of your bed and remove your sandals. Your feet ache. The skin is red where the straps dug in. You rub them slowly, working out the stiffness, then the smell. It comes quickly, thick, smoky, acrid. You step to the window and look down. Farther down the alley, you see it a fire. Not large yet, just a pile of trash burning near a doorway. Someone tried to light a barrel for warmth or light or some drunken reason. Now it spreads along a patch of old thatch. You grab your cup, fill it with water, and lean out. But the fire is already being beaten back by 3 men with soaked cloaks. One of them stomps on the last bit of ember. The light fades. Smoke lingers. The moment passes. This happens often. Rome burns constantly. Small fires, accidental ones, intentional ones. The fire brigade tries to keep up, but the city is built from wood and carelessness. Ceilings too low, beams too dry, oil lamps too close to drapes. The wrong tilt of a flame and everything goes. Historians still argue whether the Great Fire of Rome started in the Suburra or closer to the Palatine. But fires big and small were part of life before and after. They shape the city's memory more than its walls. You lie back on the mattress. The straw pokes through the cloth. It itches. You shift. It doesn't help. A creak echoes above, then below. The building never stops moving. Even the wind outside makes it shift slightly like a ship moored too tightly to land. You glance at the door. There's no lock. A small wooden wedge lies beside it. You push it into place with your foot. On the wall near your bed, someone has scratched words in charcoal. Faded, smeared by time. You can just make them out. Quis custodiet? Ipsos custodes, who watches the watchers. You close your eyes. A dog barks in the distance. A man yells something, then laughs. Two more voices follow, then silence again. Your floorboard creaks softly with your breath. Outside your shutter, someone lights another lamp. The glow stretches across the wall. You count the flickers. 1, 2, pause. Then it steadies. Another thump above you. A different one. Heavier. Then a rush footsteps running down the stairs. Someone is leaving quickly. You don't open the door. You just listen. Eventually the building settles. You breathe slowly. The night air is cooler now, though still stale. You can hear it move through the shutters, brushing the edge of your blanket. You pull it up to your chest. The mattress shifts beneath you. Something scurries across the floor. A mouse, maybe, or worse. You don't react. There's nothing to be done. You stare at the ceiling. It's low, covered in faint stains. In one corner, a spider inches along its thread. Sleep doesn't come easily. The city hums constantly, softly, but never ending. A low, pulsing noise like the echo of a voice long buried under stone and ash. A cart rattles somewhere far away. An oil lamp sputters. A child coughs. You close your eyes again. Tomorrow will be the same. Unless something catches fire. Unless something collapses. Unless the water runs out. But for now, you rest. In a bed built above the city's bones, in a building made to tilt and fall and be rebuilt again. In a room barely big enough for sleep, and Rome exhales beneath you. You wake before dawn. There's no rooster, no sunbeam, no gentle breeze through the shutters. Just the cold pressing into your spine and the sound of a neighbor spitting phlegm out their window onto the cobblestones below. Your blanket is twisted around your legs. The straw pokes through the cloth again. The scratch across your hip is fresh. Another night spent in a borrowed body under a borrowed roof. You sit up slowly. Your neck aches. Your arms ache. Your back aches. Your knees ache. You're not sick. You're Roman. You step to the window and open the shutter. The air is damp gray quiet. The street is nearly empty, just a lone man pulling a mule and two women sweeping in front of a shop. You dress quickly. Same tunic, same sandals. The soul is starting to separate. You press it back together and move on. Today, you're with the soldiers. You walk east toward the Castra Praetoria, Rome's main military camp. The stones of the street are smoother here, more worn. The buildings taller, the crowd thinner. You pass a man loading baskets of onions onto a cart. He doesn't look up. You step around a sleeping dog and into the wide shadow of a looming wall. The barracks are surrounded by stone. High, clean, imposing. Two guards stand at the gate in bronze helmets, spears resting beside them. One watches you approach. The other blinks slowly. You give your name and your reason. He grunts and lets you pass. Inside the world is sharper, the streets straighter, the walls newer, everything in order. You're led to a courtyard where soldiers are already gathered. Young men in simple tunics stand in rows. An officer barks commands. They move in unison. Step, halt, turn, hold. The leather of their sandals slaps the ground in rhythm. Their breathing sinks. Their shoulders tense together. A second officer watches with arms crossed. His armor gleams. You hear a clink with every shift of his weight. A standard bearer stands beside him holding the unit's emblem high, an eagle of bronze. You're directed to the side where recruits prepare their gear. A wooden bench holds stacks of folded tunics, belts, and sharpened spathas. A tub of oil sits nearby. One man rubs it into his shield with a rag. Another checks the studs on his Caligai military boots with iron hobnails. You sit and observe. Breakfast is issued in the form of dry bread and a few olives. You chew slowly. The bread is harder than anything you've eaten all week. The olives are bitter wrinkled. One still has a stem. The man next to you nods. "Could be worse," he mutters. You agree silently. After eating, you're handed a wooden practice sword. It's heavy, unbalanced. The officer points to a row of straw dummies and says nothing. You join the others and begin. The drill is repetitive. Raise, step, swing, reset, raise, step, swing, reset. Over and over until your arms burn and your shoulders scream. A boy next to you drops his sword. The officer barks at him. He picks it up again, face red, hands shaking. You switch to the shield. Practice blocks. Practice lunges. Someone shouts. Another drops. Dust rises from the courtyard like heat. The sun is higher now, pressing down. Water is served. Warm, faintly metallic. You drink it anyway. Then the march. 2 lines form. You're told to follow. You walk in step with 20 others through the camp, past the armory, past the baths, past the latrines, out the side gate, onto a dirt path lined with cypress trees. You march, 2 miles out, 2 miles back. No talking, no pausing. When someone stumbles, another lifts them by the arm. The officers watch, but don't help. You return with dust in your nose and sand between your teeth. Back in the yard, weapons are cleaned. Armor is checked. Tents are packed, then unpacked, then packed again. One recruit complains of a blister. He's ignored. Another mutters about his pay. The officer hears and makes him scrub the latrines. Discipline, they say, is the heart of the legion. Historians still argue whether the Roman army was the most efficient force of its time or simply the most brutal. Its success is measured in provinces, not comfort. Its victories built roads, not kindness. You eat lunch in the shade. Salted pork, hard cheese, and dried figs. The pork is chewy, almost leathery. The cheese cracks in your fingers. The figs are full of seeds. A veteran joins you. He's older than the rest. Gray in the beard, scar across one cheek. He doesn't speak until you offer part of your bread. He nods. "Been here 23 years, he says. 3 more, and I get a farm. If I'm not dead." You ask where he served. Britannia, then Africa, then Dalmatia, and here. You ask which was worst. "Dalmatia," he says. "Too many hills." He finishes the bread and wipes his mouth with his forearm. "Don't let the shield drop. That's what gets you killed." He walks away. You're assigned latrine duty for the afternoon. Long trench stone seats, wooden cover. You scrub with vinegar and ash. The smell is unbearable. The flies worse. But it's quiet. You work in silence until sunset. The sky turns orange again. Lamps are lit. The officer signals the end of the day. The recruits collapse against walls, stretch their legs, groan softly. You sit in the dirt, back against a stack of shields. A boy next to you sings quietly to himself, a melody with no words. A cook walks by with a tray of boiled beans. You take a handful. They're bland, but warm. You think of your bed above the alley, of the spiders, of the fire. You think of tomorrow's drills, tomorrow's march, tomorrow's shield. You chew your beans, slowly. The wind shifts. The trees sway. Someone coughs. And you wonder briefly what it means to fight for something you'll never see. You don't sleep in your insula tonight. Instead, you sleep on a bedroll made of coarse cloth laid over packed earth. There is no straw, no pillow. Only your arm under your head and a shield beside your body. The stars are visible between the roof beams of the barrack shed. Cold air snakes in through the open wall. You're with the Legion now, posted temporarily at the Empire's edge. At least this edge. Rome's real edge is far from the marble steps and crowded baths. It's wind-blown and gray. This place is called a castrum, a frontier outpost. The camp sits beside a river that flows too fast to drink from and too cold to swim in. Across that river they say are tribes, barbarians, raiders, ghosts. You wake at dawn. Not to a rooster, not even to voices. You wake to the cold. The fire has gone out. Your breath clouds the air. You rise slowly, your limbs stiff and reluctant. Your tunic is damp. Your fingers numb. You scrape frost from your boots and slip them on. Outside, the light is blue-gray. A centurion yells orders before you're fully awake. The men shuffle into line, shaking off sleep with quiet groans. Your stomach is hollow, but no food appears yet. First inspection. Each man stands straight. A junior officer walks past, eyeing sandals, checking belts. A broken strap means punishment. A dull blade means punishment. Too dirty punishment. The man 2 places down receives a knock to the chest for a crooked strap. He doesn't flinch. You pass. Then the day begins. The work isn't glorious. There are no battles, no trumpet calls, no parades. The morning is spent digging. Ditches, trenches, drainage. You grip a wooden-handled shovel and chip away at frozen soil. The ground cracks in brittle clumps. Your hands blister. Your knees ache from squatting. The sun doesn't warm you. It only reveals how far there is left to go. A boy beside you coughs blood into his sleeve. No one reacts. He wipes it and keeps digging. This goes on for hours. At mid-morning, there's a break. You eat cold barley mash from a bowl shared between 3 men. It tastes like the inside of your cheek. You chew slowly. One of them offers a strip of dried meat. It cracks between your teeth. You nod thanks. Afterward, weapons drill. Not the dramatic kind from the courtyard. This is more monotonous. Sharpening blades, oiling shafts, cleaning shields, checking the leather straps. You do it all while sitting on a log beside the wall. The wind whistles through the camp. One tent flaps loudly. Someone sneezes. A bell rings once. That means mail. A few soldiers crowd around the officer's tent. One receives a wax tablet and reads it silently, lips moving. Another opens a letter sealed with mud. His brow furrows. He crumples it and throws it into the fire. You do not receive anything. You're not surprised. Historians still argue whether frontier service hardened Roman men or simply wore them down faster. They came here young, idealistic, or desperate. They left older, broken, or buried. You walk the perimeter wall next. It's made of timber stakes lashed with rope. Beyond it, mist curls over the empty plain. You see no threat, just grass, just the river. A senior guard points to a spot near the corner tower. That's where they crossed last time, he says. You ask when. He shrugs. Spring. You keep walking. Midday comes and goes with no signal. You cut firewood, haul water, patch a hole in your tent wall. Your fingers sting from the cold even wrapped in cloth. You cough twice. Something in your lungs cracks when you inhale deeply. Still no enemies. Still no relief. Evening falls quietly. The sky turns flat and heavy. You're assigned watch duty. Third shift. Midnight to dawn. The worst hours. You try to rest beforehand, but the cold digs into your spine. Your breath makes the tent feel smaller. At midnight, someone shakes your shoulder. You rise. You stand on the tower holding a torch. Below, the mist is thicker. You hear water. You hear nothing else. No conversation. No birds. No music. Just the sound of waiting. The stars are dim tonight. The moon hides behind a curtain of clouds. You shift your weight to stay awake. Your knees protest. You think about the city, about the bathhouse, the bread cellar, the smoke of the Polonica. You think about warm water. You think about garum. You think about that dry, cracked crust you had with olives. You realize you miss it. The silence deepens. Then movement. A shape at the edge of the fog. You squint. It might be a fox, or a man, or nothing. You don't call out. You don't raise the alarm. You watch. The shape drifts sideways, then vanishes. You keep watching. But it doesn't return. At last, dawn. The sky turns colorless again. The torch in your hand burns low. Your shift ends. You descend the ladder, your legs trembling. The ground is colder than before. You step back to your tent and lie on the mat. You don't sleep. Just breathe. The centurion calls for work detail again. You rise and begin digging. Again. The shovel hits frozen dirt again. And again. Your hands blistered, your shoulders hollowed from the same motion repeated through the fog of morning. Each breath stings. The frost hasn't lifted yet. Your boots crunch on the edge of shallow ice as you move between trench lines. The man next to you is coughing again, low and steady. By midday, the light shifts. The cold remains, but the air thins just enough to suggest weather coming in. You drop the shovel. Your fingers curl against your palm involuntarily. The muscles too tight now, too cold. You stretch them out slowly, then sit on an overturned water bucket. A soldier walks past, dragging a pig carcass on a rope. It leaves a trail behind. The rope frays with each pull. A junior officer approaches and calls your name. You stand. He tells you to report to the burial crew. You follow him without question. He leads you through the outer gate along a dirt path marked with the occasional stone. It's not long before you reach a field bordered by wooden posts. There's no wall, no fence, just a field. Silent and still. At its center, a low stone building, half-buried roof sagging. This is the necropolis, the city of the dead. Rome buries its citizens outside its living walls. This practice is old, held more by tradition than law. It keeps the smell out. And the ghosts. You're handed a bundle of cloth, a shovel, a sealed jar of pitch. 2 other men are there already. They nod. No one speaks. You follow them to a shallow pit where 2 wrapped forms lie side by side, one adult, one smaller, both bound tightly with linen soaked in vinegar and herbs. Their faces are covered, their arms folded. One of the men begins to read. Not from a scroll, but from memory. A few lines about peace passing and the soul. You dig. The soil is dry here, looser than at the barracks. Each shovel of earth lands beside you with a dull thud. When the hole is deep enough, the bodies are placed inside. You sprinkle ash around the edges, then the pitch, then the dirt. No marker is placed, just a stone. You return the shovel and wash your hands in the basin. The water is cold. There is no towel. One of the others says quietly, "They died in the night. The mother first, then the boy." You ask what happened. "Bad figs," he says. You walk away, back through the gate, past the stable, past the silent centurion watching the horizon from a stool. You sit on a barrel near the edge of camp. The sun is barely above the trees, but the day feels older. You think about how many are buried outside the wall, how many are wrapped in the same cloth, lowered by the same hands with the same ash. You think about who remembers. A priest arrives just before dusk. He's old, his robe patched and frayed. He carries a jar of wine and a dish of millet. He lights a small fire beside the altar stone and begins to chant. You join the circle forming around him. He speaks of the underworld, of spirits that wander if left unmarked, of hungry ghosts that rise from the grave to steal sleep from the living. He pours wine onto the fire. It flares briefly, then fades. Everyone steps back. The wind shifts. Behind you, the camp is dim now, torches lit. The air smells of ash oil and cooked barley. You walk back slowly. Along the way, you pass a man carrying a child on his shoulders. The child is asleep, his head bobbing with each step. The man whistles softly, a song with no melody. Near the latrine, a soldier lights a torch and waves it to clear the flies. The sound is hollow, soft, fading. You turn into a side tent used for washing. There's a bucket of warm water. You rinse your hands again. You rinse your arms, your face. The water turns gray, then black. You pour it out and walk away. Later, you eat by the fire. Beans and grain, cooked slowly, heavily salted. You eat with your fingers, scooping the mash into your mouth, chewing without tasting. The others do the same. No one speaks. Someone tosses a bone into the flames. It hisses. The air thickens. You lean back against a post and stare at the fire. Historians still argue whether Roman burial rituals were superstition or civic duty, whether the offerings meant something or if they were just a comfort for the living. But here at the edge of the world, with only a cloth between you and forgetting it, doesn't seem to matter. You lie down near the fire wrapped in your cloak. The ground is hard. The warmth seeps away quickly. The stars are clearer tonight, the wind sharper. Somewhere nearby someone sings again, a lullaby. You don't know the words, but they sound like sleep. You wake before the sun. The sky is still dark stars barely visible. The fire beside you has turned to coals. The others still sleep curled in cloaks and shadows. You rise slowly. Your breath clouds the air. The ground beneath you is damp. Your back stiff. Today, you leave the camp. Orders are simple: escort a supply cart to a temple outpost 3 miles east near the foothills. You're told to carry a short sword, a torch, and a sealed pouch of incense. The incense is not for you. It's for the priest. You step behind the stable where the cart is already being loaded. 2 mules harnessed. One man seated at the front reins, slack in his hand. He nods as you approach, but says nothing. You climb onto the rear platform and sit on a crate labeled Oil Olive Thick. You grip the edge and wait. At first light, the gate opens. You pass beneath the wooden arch and out into the mist. The road is rough, not paved like the Appian Way, just flattened earth with scattered stones, made passable by generations of wear. The wheels creak with every rotation. The mules grunt softly, their hooves muffled by the wet path. You ride in silence. Trees line both sides, mostly cypress and oak. Their branches drip from last night's rain. The mist clings low to the grass, crawling in swirls that brush the wheel hubs. Birds call faintly from the branches. You don't recognize the species. They sound thin and distant. The cart jolts. A wheel dips into a rut. You tighten your grip. The driver swears under his breath. He snaps the reins gently. The mules continue. You pass a marker stone, faded, cracked. The inscription worn down to nothing. Ivy has crept across its base. It leans slightly to one side. Farther ahead you spot another marker, newer, painted white with a red stripe, a Roman standard staked into the ground. It marks the border of the religious domain. The driver stops the cart. He gestures to the stone. On foot now, he mutters, "They don't like wheels." You hop down. You take the pouch of incense from the crate and sling it over your shoulder. The torch remains unlit. The driver turns the cart around. The mules snort. Then they disappear into the trees. You walk the rest of the way alone. The path winds upward, slow and steady. You pass a grove of laurel trees tied with scraps of cloth offerings left by visitors. Some are fresh, others faded. A child's bracelet, a coin wedged into bark, a bit of bread crust. You don't touch anything. The temple appears at the top of the ridge, small, made of pale stone, square columns, a red tile roof. The door is open. No guards, no crowd, just the sound of running water from a nearby spring. You step inside. The interior is dark, the floor cold under your feet. Torches burn in wall sconces, but faintly. At the far end, an altar. Behind it, a statue stone, expressionless. You recognize the figure. Not Jupiter, not Mars. This is a temple to the emperor. His likeness carved from marble draped in a toga. His hand raised in eternal gesture, his eyes blank. A priest enters from a side chamber. His robe is white clean. His face is lined, but his eyes are sharp. He approaches you, silently extends a hand. You hand him the pouch. He opens it, nods once, and walks to the altar. He places the incense beside the flame. Then, using a long iron rod, he shifts the coals and sprinkles the contents carefully. Smoke rises. Sweet at first, then bitter. He mutters something under his breath. Then louder, for stability, for peace, for the good of all Romans. He turns to you. You may kneel. You do. He places a hand on your head. It's cold, dry. He recites a blessing, ancient words that roll like water across stone. Then silence. You stand. He dismisses you with a nod. You exit the temple slowly. Outside, the sky is brighter, the mist rising. The spring bubbles softly in its channel. You drink from the basin near the steps. The water is clear, cold. You wipe your mouth with your sleeve. Down the hill the cart has returned. The driver rests against the wheel, chewing something dry. He sees you and waves. You descend. The ride back is just as slow, just as quiet. You pass the same trees, the same stones, the same silent birds. Only now the red stripe on the border marker seems fresher. When you return to the castrum, the gate closes behind you. A different guard nods. You step down, stretch your legs. Your knees crack. You walk to the wash tent and scrub your hands with sand. The incense scent still lingers. A man nearby says the cook has finished preparing the evening meal. You find a seat beside the fire. The bowl handed to you is filled with lentils and grain. A strip of cabbage lies across the top. You eat slowly. Someone asks where you went. You say, the temple. They nod. That's enough. You finish the last spoonful, set the bowl down, and lie back in the dust. Above you, smoke rises from the cook fire straight into the dimming sky. You watch it spiral. And think about how still the emperor's eyes were. The sky is darker now, with only the faintest traces of color bleeding along the western horizon. You lie beside the fire, your back stiff from the ground. The smoke drifts upward in slow coils, breaking apart before they reach the top of the tent frame. Your tunic is damp with sweat that has turned cold. Your sandals lie beside you. Your toes curl against the dirt. There is a shout near the gate. You sit up. 2 guards drag a man into the camp. His tunic is torn. His lip is split. Blood glistens in a line down his chin. They don't shout. They don't explain. They walk him past the fire and into the command tent. You watch. Nothing happens for a few moments. Then a centurion emerges. Not the one from before. This one is older, shorter, his chest wrapped in a segmented cuirass metal glinting in the firelight. He carries a vine staff in one hand. His face doesn't change when he speaks. Prisoner, someone says. Theft. The older man nods once. They lead the accused to the center of camp where the ground is packed and flat. A circle forms. Soldiers rise from their meals. Some lean against carts. Others cross their arms and stand still. The accused says nothing. He keeps his head low. The centurion steps into the circle and lifts his staff. He raises his voice not loud but clear. Theft from a fellow legionary. Bread, oil. He turns once to face the crowd. Then again. Slowly. Deliberately. This will be punished. He signals to two men at the edge. They carry a long rod and a bundle of leather straps. They approach without ceremony. The punishment is flogging. You've heard of it. Read about it. But this is the first time you see it. The man is tied to a wooden frame. His tunic is pushed down to his waist, his back exposed. Pale, trembling. The first strike lands, then the second, then the third. The sound is dull, not sharp, more like leather slapped against meat than any kind of crack. The man grunts, not loudly, not theatrically, just a soft sound, like breath interrupted. No one looks away, no one speaks. The punishment continues. 15 lashes, 20. His shoulders split open, his spine curves, his knees shake. At 30, the centurion raises his hand. The lashing stops. They untie the man and let him fall. He lands on his sidearms, curled blood seeping into the soil. Two soldiers lift him and carry him away. No cheers, no silence, just routine. This is Roman justice. Quick, visible, uncomplicated. Historians still argue whether it was fair, whether it deterred crime or simply taught silence. But here it doesn't feel like a debate. It feels like structure, like order. You sit back down near the fire. Your appetite is gone. Across from you, another man shrugs. Could have been worse, he says. Could have been crucifixion. You nod. He's not wrong. Execution in Rome varies. Beheading for citizens, crucifixion for slaves, burning for traitors, strangulation for dishonor. Each punishment has its place, its process, its symbolic weight. You've seen none of those yet, just the lash. But the way the crowd responded or didn't tells you everything. The night grows colder. You wrap your cloak tighter around your chest. The fire pops softly. A few men begin to play dice. One throws a stone and curses when it lands wrong. The others laugh. You lie back again, watching the smoke drift upward. The punishment echoes in your bones, not from pain, from understanding. No courts, no jury, no appeal. Only the centurion, only the vine staff, only the whip. Tomorrow no one will mention it. The man will be given ointment, bread, a day of rest. Then he will dig again, march again, stand beside the men who watched him bleed, and none will speak of it. You close your eyes. The fire flickers behind your lids. Someone sings softly. Off key. It stops after one verse. Your breath slows, and Rome sleeps quiet, coiled, waiting for another infraction. The next morning you wake to the sound of a wooden post cracking in the distance. Not violently, just a dull, splitting noise like timber giving in to age. You rise slowly, brushing ash from your tunic. The air is colder than yesterday, thinner, the kind of cold that settles behind your eyes and inside your bones. You stretch, pull your sandals on, and drink from the basin. The water is icy. Your jaw tightens. You swallow anyway. Today, you're assigned to escort duty. The centurion points toward the road beyond the gate and says one word, Appia. You know the name. The Appian Way, Via Appia, the Queen of Roads. You've heard stories how it stretches from Rome to the far south, paved in stone, older than most of the buildings around you, a road that once carried legions, merchants, slaves, and senators. You follow two other men, each carrying a spear and a bag. You carry a staff, a dagger, and a pouch of travel rations, salted pork, dried beans, a wedge of hard cheese wrapped in fig leaves. A cart waits outside the camp loaded with scrolls, jars of ink, and tablets of wax, official documents, orders, notices, receipts, bureaucracy wrapped in wax and bound with cord. You do not drive the cart. You walk beside it. The road begins smooth, laid with square stones, tight-fitting and even. Dust gathers in the gaps, but the surface holds firm. The cart rolls quietly. The mules walk without complaint. You pass shrines built into roadside walls. One holds a worn statue of Mercury. Another has a weathered inscription in Latin, part prayer, part warning. You don't read it, you just keep moving. The trees grow thinner, the wind stronger. The road curves gently through low hills. To your right, a field of stubble. To your left, a stretch of swamp reeds swaying in the breeze. You hear frogs. Then nothing. Up ahead, a group of riders approaches. 5 men, armored dull shields slung across their backs. They wear cloaks, but no insignia. One raises a hand in greeting. You nod in return. They pass without stopping. The others glance back briefly, then forward again. You walk for 2 hours without speaking. Eventually, the road bends toward a small bridge. Stone arches wide enough for 2 carts. A toll station stands beside it, half ruined, with a cloth awning sagging between wooden poles. A man waits under it, holding a ledger. He raises a hand as you approach. Name he asks. One of your companions replies. Business dispatch. The man grunts. He doesn't inspect the scrolls. He doesn't open the bags. He waves you on. Historians still argue whether Roman roads were tools of military dominance or symbols of administrative control. But walking them now, you see both. They're not just paths. They're arteries, straight, silent, enduring. You pass a roadside grave marker, a low stone slab with an inscription barely legible. Here lies Gaius, aged 32, loved by none but remembered. The words are chipped. The stone tilts slightly. A crow perches atop it, silent. You move on. The sun climbs higher. The wind softens. A group of farmers passes on foot, carrying baskets of olives. They give you a wide berth. One of them spits into the grass. You eat at midday. You sit on a flat rock beside the road and open your pouch. The pork is stiff, the cheese oily, the beans dry. Still, you chew each bite carefully, staring at the road ahead. A trader passes on foot, leading a donkey loaded with clay jars. He nods, says nothing. A boy follows him barefoot, dragging a stick in the dust. You finish your meal and brush the crumbs into the grass. In the distance, a city appears. Not Rome, not large, just a cluster of buildings behind a short wall. You skirt its edge. The road continues south, but you turn east toward a collection of villas and outposts near the hills. One of your companions remarks bandits took a cart here last week. The other grunts. You keep moving. Soon the road narrows. The stone pavers end. Dirt resumes. The sound of wheels changes softer, less steady. The mules protest. The cart shakes. A wheel splashes into a rut and sticks. You all stop. Together you lift the cart and push it forward. The wheel pops loose. The axle groans. You continue on. A villa rises, a head-wide courtyard, tiled roof, whitewashed walls. A guard meets you at the gate. You hand him the satchel of scrolls. He takes them, opens one, scans it. He waves you inside. You wait near the stables while the others check the rest of the delivery. You sit on a low wall, wiping your face with a cloth. The sun is hot now. Your tunic clings to your back. Inside, you hear laughter, music, a flute and a lyre, off-key but persistent. Someone is hosting guests. A servant brings you water. You nod in thanks. He doesn't respond. He disappears back into the shadows. When the cart is emptied, you turn back. The return is slower. The cart is lighter, but your feet are heavier. Your legs ache. You speak little. The road looks the same, but the light has changed. The shadows stretch longer. The air cools. You pass the grave again. The crow is gone. At the toll post, the man is asleep in a chair. You keep walking. By the time you see the outline of the castrum, your calves throb. Your throat is dry. Your mind blank. The guards open the gate. You step inside. The fire is lit. The same circle of men sits near it, sharing a bowl of olives. You sit beside them. You take an olive. You chew. No one asks where you went. No one explains what comes next. You stare at the flames and think about how the road never ends. It just changes names. You sleep beside the wall that night. The stone behind you still holds warmth from the sun. The fire burns low, throwing long shadows across the dirt. The olive pit from your last bite lies somewhere near your shoulder. You don't bother finding it. Your eyes close slowly, your breath shallow. Someone nearby hums a tune you've heard before but can't remember the name of. You wake to the sound of a bell. Not an alarm, a signal. It's morning again. You rise. You stretch. Your arms creak. Your knees complain. Your mouth is dry. Today you're ordered to the Thermae, the military bath complex. Not for leisure, for cleaning. You follow a group of men out through the side gate and down a narrow path to a stone building. Its roof is tiled in red clay, its walls pale and streaked with lime stains. A wooden sign hangs beside the entrance, Balnea. Just the word. No symbols, no decoration. You step inside. The air changes instantly. It's warm, humid, and smells of oil sweat and damp cloth. Torches flicker on the walls, casting long, waving shadows. The walls are painted faintly with scenes of sea creatures, faded now, scratched and discolored. You undress in the apoditerium, the changing room. You fold your tunic, place it in a cubby, and wrap a linen cloth around your waist. Your sandals stay behind. You carry nothing but yourself. You move into the tepidarium. It's the warm room meant to ease the body into the bath. The floor is warm to the touch. Heated from beneath by the hypocaust, an underground system that circulates hot air. The walls sweat. The ceiling drips. You sit on a bench. A man beside you rubs his arms with oil. A servant moves between bathers with a bronze jug. He offers you some. You nod. He pours a stream of olive oil into your palm. You rub it across your chest, your shoulders, your arms. Next comes the caldarium. You pass through a thick curtain into the hot room. The heat hits you like a wall, wet, dense, clinging. Your breath shortens. Your skin prickles. In the center of the room is a square pool, steaming gently. Men sit around it sweating. One dips a cloth in the water and wipes his face. Another uses a strigil to scrape oil and dirt from his skin. The curved blade collects grime in a single stroke. You sit near the edge and begin the same ritual. Oil, scrape, rinse, repeat. The water on the floor runs dark. A slave boy walks by with a bucket and splashes it with clean water. The steam rises again. Someone farts. No one reacts. You scrape your arms clean, then your chest, then your legs. The strigil tugs at the small hairs on your skin. It doesn't hurt, not much. A man next to you sneezes. He wipes his nose on his forearm. You nod once. He nods back. This is Roman hygiene. Cleanliness through oil, heat, and scraping. No soap, no towels, just muscle, metal, and water. Historians still argue whether the Roman baths were truly sanitary. The water was shared, the tools communal, disease common. But they were also the center of social life. Business, gossip, politics, all soaked into the stone. You rise and move to the frigidarium, the cold room. You step into the plunge pool. The shock grips your chest. You gasp. You stand still, arms tight to your sides, knees locked. Then you exhale and submerge. The cold clears your thoughts. Your skin tightens. Your breath shortens again. You climb out slowly, water dripping from your elbows, your chin, your knees. You walk back to the tepidarium. There you sit until your breath evens. A servant brings you a small towel, rough wool. You dry your face, your hands, your chest. You return to the apoditerium. Your tunic is still damp. You put it on anyway. You step back outside. The air is brighter now, the sun higher. The wind carries a slight scent of pine. You walk back to camp. But something's changed. The warmth from the bath clings to your bones. Your joints ache less. Your skin is smooth. You walk differently, slower, heavier, more deliberate. Back at the barracks, someone passes you a bowl of chickpeas soaked in vinegar. You eat them slowly, each bite soft and sour. A man sits beside you. He smells of thyme oil and garlic. He nods. You look cleaner. You shrug. Won't last, he adds. You nod. He's right. You cough once. Just once. Then you lie down near the wall again, your back to the fire. A breeze moves across your cheek. The bath is over. The dirt returns. You wake later than usual. The camp is already moving. The fire's down to embers. The light outside the tent is brighter, harsher. You sit up slowly, rubbing your face with both hands. The stiffness in your shoulders is back. The clarity from yesterday's bath has faded like heat from an empty stove. No orders today. Not yet. You're told to report to the magistrate's scribe. You walk across camp past the barracks, past the training yard, to the small stone structure beside the flagpole. The door is wood wrapped in iron, split with age. You knock once. The voice inside answers. Enter. The room is dim. Light filters through a single high slit in the wall. Dust floats in columns. Shelves line the walls, each stacked with scrolls, tablets, ledgers bound with twine. The scribe sits cross-legged on a low stool hunched over a wooden desk. His fingers are stained with ink. His eyes are red. He doesn't look up. He gestures to a bench. You sit. You can read, he asks. You hesitate, then nod. He doesn't test you. Good, he says. We're behind. He hands you a wax tablet and stylus. Transcribe. You lean forward. The task is simple. Copy from scroll to tablet. Names, payments. Records of delivery. List of fines. One entry for a man who owes 4 denarii for a broken spear. Another for a missing cloak. Another for late duty. You copy each name slowly, the stylus scraping across the wax. The light shifts as the sun climbs higher. The room stays still. The scribe coughs once, spits into a cloth, then returns to his ledger. A runner arrives mid-morning. He delivers a scroll tied with a black ribbon. The scribe unties it, reads it, then sighs. Another audit, he mutters. You keep writing. By noon, your wrist aches. Your fingers cramp. The stylus slips once and scratches the wax too deeply. You rub it smooth with your thumb and start again. You stop when the scribe says, enough. You hand back the tablet. He nods, doesn't thank you. You leave. Outside, the sun is directly overhead. The heat presses down like a hand. The stones under your sandals radiate warmth. You squint. You head toward the storehouse, thinking of food. The quartermaster sits beneath a canopy counting sacks of grain. Each one is weighed, inspected, sealed with red wax. You stand in line with others, bowl in hand. When it's your turn, you're given a portion of boiled wheat, 2 olives, and a sliver of goat cheese. No bread, no wine. You sit beneath a low wall and eat. The wheat is bland. The olives are sour. The cheese crumbles in your fingers. You finish each bite. A man nearby mutters about taxes. You listen. He says his cousin lost 2 goats after a tax inspection. Says they were taken as payment. Says no one asked questions. You ask what he did. Nothing, the man replies. What would he do? You nod. You return your bowl and walk toward the basilica, a long rectangular hall used for official business. Inside, stone columns hold up a timber roof. The floor is packed dirt. A raised platform at the far end supports a magistrate's bench. 2 scribes sit beside him. One sleeps. A soldier stands before them, arms behind his back. He's being questioned. You catch words: dereliction, delayed response, falsified order. The magistrate doesn't raise his voice. He speaks clearly, evenly. The soldier replies in short sentences. Yes, No. I did. I didn't. A witness speaks next, then a second. The case ends quickly. The verdict: fine of 8 denarii, payable within 10 days. If unpaid labor will be substituted. The soldier bows, leaves. Another man steps forward. He's accused of bribery. The tone changes. You step outside before the judgment. A line of people waits beneath the eaves. Some are soldiers, some are civilians, some carry scrolls, others carry nothing. You pass them and turn down a side alley. At its end stands a man with a bag over his shoulder, scratching figures onto a wooden board with charcoal. You ask what he's doing. Tabulating debts, he says. You nod and move on. Historians still argue whether Roman bureaucracy was efficient or bloated, whether it enabled empire or buried it under scrolls and stamps. The truth standing here now is that no one escapes it. You return to the barracks. You find your bed. You lie down. Not from exhaustion, just to stop moving. You stare at the ceiling. You think about the ink on your fingers, the wax on your thumb, the quiet voice of the magistrate, the missing bread, the scribbled names of men no one remembers. You close your eyes. Someone walks past your bed. Their sandals click against stone. They stop, then continue. A breeze lifts the edge of the curtain. The sun begins to fall again. The scrolls remain untouched. You sleep. Briefly. You wake as the sun dips below the western wall. The light inside the barracks turns coppery, then gray. The air cools. You sit up slowly, rubbing your arms. A dull ache settles behind your eyes. Your mouth tastes of dust and old oil. You leave your bunk and walk back toward the main square. The camp changes in the evening. The shouting fades. The movement slows. Weapons are stacked. Armor is oiled. Fires are lit. You smell beans boiling in clay pots. You hear the scrape of a sharpening stone. You hear laughter low and tired. You cross the square to the mess tent. Inside, a line of men waits. One holds a wooden bowl. Another scratches his leg. A third leans against the pole, eyes half closed. You take your place behind them. When it's your turn, you receive a ladle of barley mash and a slice of pickled beet. No meat today. No cheese. Just grain and vinegar. You sit at the edge of a long table and eat. Each bite is slow. The barley is overcooked, the beet soft and sour. You chew until the taste fades. Then you swallow. A man beside you says nothing. Another mutters about his foot blistered, possibly infected. Someone sneezes at the far end of the tent. No one looks up. You finish your meal and leave your bowl with the others stacked on a plank of wood that serves as a counter. A slave rinses them in cold water one by one without comment. You step outside again. The sky is dark now. The stars are visible. The moon hangs low, caught between 2 towers. Smoke from the fires rises slowly. You walk the perimeter. The outer wall is quiet. 2 guards stand beside the east gate. One shifts his weight. The other taps his fingers against the hilt of his gladius. You walk past them without speaking. At the northeast corner, you stop and look out beyond the wall. The land is flat. A thin line of trees marks the edge of the horizon. You see no movement, no fires, no tents, just grass and stone. You sit on a low bench beside the wall. The wood is rough. The air smells of damp ash. You listen. You hear a dog bark, distant. Then a reply. You hear a cough from the barracks. You hear nothing else. You think about the city, the baths, the bread, the smell of fish sauce and sweat, the creak of the insula, the cold marble of the latrine, the warmth of the street vendor's lentils. You think about the building that leaned too far over the alley. You think about the sponge on a stick. You think about the woman who placed a scrap of bread at the roadside shrine. The camp has none of that. Only dirt, discipline, silence. Historians still argue whether Rome's frontier soldiers felt loyal to the empire or only to their units, whether they believed in the idea of Rome or simply feared the punishments. But standing here now beneath the moon and above the plains, it feels like neither. It feels like waiting. A man passes behind you walking slowly. He carries a bucket. You hear water sloshing. He says nothing. You nod once. He doesn't respond. You remain on the bench. The moon brightens slightly. A breeze moves the grass outside the wall. You watch it shift, ripple bend. There is no end to it, just movement. You return to the barracks after a while. Inside men are already lying down, some wrapped in cloaks, some on mats. One man sits up sharpening a blade slowly. The rasp echoes through the wooden beams. You lie down on your pallet. You place your sandals beside your head. You fold your arms. You close your eyes. The sounds of the camp fade. Outside, the wind rises again. You hear a voice, faint, half-dreamed. Someone speaking in Latin, or Greek, or neither. It doesn't matter. You sleep anyway, and Rome holds you in place. The next morning you wake to silence. No shouting, no clanging iron, no barked orders, just wind, just the creak of ropes on poles and the soft flapping of canvas. The fire has died. Only a small curl of smoke rises from the coals. You sit up slowly. There's a stillness over the camp. Not absence, just pause. Everyone is waiting for something, though no one says what. You're told to pack. No reason given. You gather your cloak, your satchel, your blade. You wrap your sandals tightly and tuck a piece of barley bread into your pouch. You don't ask questions. You don't make eye contact. You walk. Not toward the parade ground, not toward the training yard, but toward the administrative tent. Inside a table stands covered in scrolls, sealed, stamped, stacked. A scribe looks up. He waves you forward. He doesn't smile. He hands you a document. You don't read it. You tie it shut and slip it into your pouch. You're told to deliver it. Wear back to Rome. You don't ask why. You leave the camp by foot, alone. The road west stretches before you. Worn, familiar. You pass the same toll post, the same shrine, the same grave with the same crow perched on it, still silent. By noon the sun rises straight overhead. You stop to drink. The water is warm but clean. You sit beneath a cypress tree and eat your bread. It's dry. It sticks to the roof of your mouth. You finish every bite. You walk again. By dusk, you see the edge of the city. Rome. At first it looks like any other town. Tiled roofs, small villas, a scattering of trees. But as you descend the last hill, it spreads out, stone, wood, smoke, fire, arches, forums, temples, the dome of the Pantheon visible even through haze. The crowd thickens as you enter. The street narrows. People shove past. Voices overlap. You pass vendors, butchers, fishmongers, children, slaves, guards, priests, pickpockets, and beggars. No one sees you. You are a shadow again. You return to the same fountain. The lion-headed spout still flows. You wash your hands. You move through the forum past the same stall selling herbs, past the same mosaic of Mars, missing half his face. You turn left, then right, then down a side street. You reach a building marked with red paint. You knock. The door opens. A man takes the scroll. He nods once. Says nothing. You leave. No reward. No rest. No task. You simply turn and walk. The city is louder now. You hear arguments, laughter, prayers. You walk until the light fades. You stop outside a bakery. You buy a half loaf. It's still warm. You eat it slowly. You walk again. No purpose, just motion, just presence. The streets grow darker. Lamps flicker. Doors close. You pass the bathhouse. Quiet. The market. Empty. The alley with the broken arch. A man leans against a wall chewing olives. He glances at you, then looks away. You find your old insula. Still standing, you climb the stairs. The same creaks. The same rot. You reach your door. It's unlocked. You enter. The same cot. The same straw. The same cracked wall. You sit. You don't lie down. You just breathe. Outside, the city moves. Water splashes. Iron clangs. A woman calls for her child. A priest chants a name. A dog barks twice, then stops. A fire starts quietly in the distance. The light reaches your shutter. You watch it move across the wall. The wind slips through the cracks. And you wait. Not for tomorrow. Not for orders. Not for peace. Just for the moment to stop. And Rome, vast, loud, slow-burning Rome, keeps turning. You're still now. You've seen the market crowds. You've walked the Appian Way. You felt the breath of a cold morning in a soldier's tent and the warm steam of the caldarium on your skin. The dust of the city clings to your tunic. Your shoulders ache from tools, from shields, from the weight of watching. But there's no one left to impress. No speeches, no orders, no fire to tend. The lamp burns low. The cot doesn't shift. Even the street has quieted. The stones remember your steps. The bench remembers your rest. The latrine remembers the splash of cold water. Nothing speaks now, but everything remains. In the distance, a door creaks, then closes. A bird turns once on its perch. The wind moves across the shutter. The light outside dims. You lie back on your straw mattress. You don't pull the blanket over your chest. You don't shift your legs. You just let the stillness hold you. No alarms, no gladiators, no bronze. Only breath. Only the softness of a moment that finally asks for nothing. Only the city that forgets, but never stops. And now, so do you.